Excuse me, I know this sounds strange, but could I possibly borrow your shoes? Just for a few hours, please. The words hung in the warm June air, trembling with quiet desperation. Avery Brennan stood there on the university plaza, her graduation gown draped over her arm, her blonde hair catching the morning sunlight. Her right hand clutched a broken heel, and her eyes, those honest, hopeful eyes, were fixed on the stranger before her. Lennox Hayes, 32, CEO of Hayes Engineering Solutions, had just stepped out of his black sedan. He'd come to this graduation ceremony as a guest speaker, but something about this young woman's voice made him pause. Her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment, yet her gaze held a dignity that couldn't be manufactured. He looked down at her bare feet, then at his polished leather shoes. What happened? I stepped off the bus and my heel just snapped. Her voice wavered. I worked 2 jobs for 3 years to get here. I can't walk across that stage barefoot. My parents would have... She stopped, blinking rapidly. Lennox saw something in her eyes then, a familiar shadow of loss, of carrying on despite everything. What size are you? 7, but I can make anything work. I just need... These are 11s, he said gently, already unlacing his shoes. But if you can walk in them, they're yours for the day. Avery's eyes widened. You'd really? My sister always told me that kindness isn't about convenience. It's about showing up when someone needs you. He handed her the shoes, his socks still warm. Go, make your parents proud. She took them with trembling hands. Thank you. I don't even know your name. Lennox. And yours? Avery Brennan. She clutched the shoes to her chest. I'll find you after, I promise. Lennox watched her disappear into the crowd of graduates, her oversized shoes clicking against the pavement. Something about her reminded him of his daughter, Amelia, that same determined spirit, that refusal to let circumstances define her. His chest tightened with the familiar ache that had lived there since the fire a year ago. The ceremony began. Lennox sat in his borrowed dress shoes from the campus bookstore, 2 sizes too small, but he barely noticed. When Avery's name was called, graduating with highest honors, gold medalist in mechanical engineering, he found himself sitting straighter. She walked across the stage in his shoes, her head held high, and accepted her medal. Then she approached the microphone for the valedictorian speech. Today should be one of the happiest days of my life, but there are 2 people missing from this audience. My father, Professor Marcus Brennan, taught me that education isn't just about knowledge. It's about using that knowledge to serve others. My mother, Carolyn, showed me that kindness costs nothing but means everything. She paused, her hand gripping the podium. They died in a car accident 3 years ago, right before I started college. There were nights I wanted to quit, nights when working double shifts and studying until dawn felt impossible. But then I'd remember what they taught me, that our struggles don't define us. How we rise from them does. Lennox felt his throat constrict. He knew that weight, the burden of continuing when everything inside you wanted to stop. To everyone here facing their own battles, keep going. Your story isn't over. And to the stranger who lent me my shoes today when mine broke, thank you for reminding me that there's still kindness in unexpected places. The applause was thunderous, but Lennox barely heard it. He was remembering his own losses, his parents, his wife, Grace, and little Amelia with her bright laugh. The fire that had stolen them during what should have been a joyful family cabin trip. His younger sister, Wen, was all he had left, and together they'd learned to carry their grief while still trying to live. After the ceremony, Avery found him near the parking lot. She was carrying his shoes carefully, now walking in borrowed flats from a classmate. I heard your speech, Lennox said quietly. I'm sorry about your parents. And I should apologize for making you give up your shoes. She handed them back. I didn't realize. Everyone's saying you're Lennox Hayes, the CEO. Does that change what happened this morning? She shook her head. No, it makes it more meaningful. You could have just driven away. So could you have given up 3 years ago? He studied her thoughtfully. Have lunch with me. There's a cafe nearby. I'd like to hear more about your plans. Over sandwiches and coffee, Avery spoke about her engineering projects, her passion for sustainable design, her dream of creating opportunities for students like her, those who had talent but lacked resources. Lennox listened, occasionally asking questions that revealed his own deep understanding of the field. You've been through something too, Avery said suddenly. I can hear it in the way you talk about family. Lennox was quiet for a long moment. A year ago, my parents, my wife, and my 2-year-old daughter died in a cabin fire. My sister Wen and I survived. Some days I'm not sure if that's a blessing or a curse. Avery reached across the table, her hand hovering near his. I think they'd want us to keep going, to build something that honors them. Is that what you're doing? Trying to, she smiled sadly. Working in my father's favorite coffee shop, tutoring students in my mother's community center. It doesn't feel like enough, but it's something. Lennox made a decision then that felt right in a way nothing had for months. How would you feel about working at Hayes Engineering? We need someone with your skills and your heart. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise it will matter. Avery started 2 weeks later. What Lennox hadn't mentioned was that his company was struggling. 3 major projects behind schedule, clients growing impatient. He had hired her, not as charity, but because something in her speech convinced him she was exactly who they needed. He was right. Within 6 months, Avery had revolutionized their approach to structural efficiency. Her designs were innovative yet practical, and her work ethic inspired the entire team. The delayed projects were completed ahead of revised schedules. New contracts poured in. The company's revenue grew by 40%. But more than her technical skills, it was her presence that changed things. She remembered birthdays, checked in on struggling colleagues, and brought the same compassion her mother had taught her into every interaction. Lennox's sister Wen worked in the company's design department. One evening she appeared in Lennox's office, her eyes bright with realization. "Do you know who Avery is?" Wen asked.
Of course I do. No, I mean, she was in my engineering class at university. I remembered her today. She always stayed late to help anyone who was struggling. She tutored me through thermodynamics when I was failing. Ren's voice grew soft. She never asked for anything in return. I didn't even recognize her at first because she's grown so much. But that kindness, it's the same. Lennox felt something shift in his chest. She never mentioned knowing you. That's because she probably helps so many people she doesn't keep track. Ren smiled. You made the right choice bringing her here. 2 years passed. The company thrived. But Lennox noticed that Avery often stayed late, working on something that wasn't company business. Finally, he asked. It's a dream my father and I used to talk about, she admitted, pulling up designs on her computer. A non-profit organization that teaches engineering skills to underprivileged students. Scholarships, mentorship, hands-on learning. I've been planning it for years, but I didn't have the resources or the network. Lennox studied the detailed proposal. What if you didn't do it alone? She looked up surprised. What if we co-founded it together, he continued. Hayes Engineering could provide the initial funding and facilities. You'd run the program. We'd call it the Brennan Hayes Foundation. Avery's eyes filled with tears. You'd really do that? Your parents taught you to serve others. Mine taught me the same before they passed. My wife Grace always wanted to give back in meaningful ways. His voice grew thick. Maybe this is how we honor all of them, by creating something that outlives us. She nodded, unable to speak, And in that moment, they both understood they'd found more than a business partnership. They'd found purpose born from shared loss. The foundation launched 6 months later. The opening ceremony was held at Avery's old university in a newly renovated engineering lab bearing her parents' names. As they cut the ribbon together, Avery turned to Lennox and said softly, "Do you remember that morning when I asked to borrow your shoes?" Every detail. I was so scared that day. Scared I'd come so far just to fail at the last moment. But you showed me that sometimes the kindest thing we can do is trust a stranger's story. Lennox thought of his wife, his daughter, his parents, all the love that had been lost but not forgotten. And you showed me that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story, that we can build something beautiful from broken pieces. They stood together, watching the first class of students enter the lab, young people whose eyes held the same determination Avery's had that graduation morning. "Thank you for lending me your shoes," she whispered. "Thank you for reminding me why we keep walking." The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the plaza, but inside the lab, everything was bright with possibility. Proof that kindness, perseverance, and the courage to ask for help can transform not just one life, but countless others. Some stories begin with endings, but the best ones show us that with compassion and resilience, every ending carries the seed of a new beginning. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.